Later in the show, we're going to get to the allegations in the Michael Wolff book and the Bannon Trump saga. But first, I don't want to mess around. Let's get right into the hard stuff.
Weather.
Are you ready? Yeah, the weather.
Okay.
Did you lie on behalf of the president?
No.
You said a number of demonstrably proven false things, inaccurate things, while you were press secretary. You're not the first to do that, but can you admit you said some things that were not true?
I think when you get up at that podium, your goal is to tell the media and the American people the best information you have at the time. Mm-hmm. There's no question that sometimes that information changed as facts became available to us. But at no time did I go up and say something that was, as you put it, demonstrably false intentionally. There were times when facts became available to us later throughout a scenario or an event, and we went up. And to the best of my ability, when I did screw up or I didn't have all the facts, I'd say, hey, we've got further details that have come out. But I think there was an intensity and a scrutiny that has never been seen before in a White House. But I did my best every day to do what I could to communicate what the president's intentions were. And I think the other thing that has to be kept in context is a job of a spokesman isn't to be the interpreter. It's to get up there and say what the president wants said when he is not available. Right? And so there are times when people would say, well, the president hasn't given any information on this. That's my job as a spokesperson and as a press officer, is to speak on behalf of a principal, in this case, the president of the United States, and provide the person asking the question the information that the president wants communicated.
But so you're telling me that when you said that this was the largest inauguration crowd, you believed that?
But what did I say? But see, look, I don't want to relitigate everything, but if you actually look at what I said,
I know. It's important because you want the public's trust back.
I understand that. But what I want to do is, but here's the point. What you just said is not what I said. What I said is the largest audience to ever witness an inauguration in person or around the globe. The fact of the matter is that there are platforms like Twitter and Facebook and Instagram that were not available in previous administrations. And I've yet to see anything that proves. Now, what I do regret is that we didn't emphasize those points enough. We focused too much on the pictures and on some of the issues of who was present at the inauguration. That's my bad. We should have focused on the totality of the audience that witnessed the inauguration. I had media companies and other platforms calling me, telling me that the amount of web traffic they got, the number of views that they got was like nothing they had ever seen before. So we were careful in the statement to say in person or an audience around the world. I think we should have done a better job of emphasizing those facts, and that's on me. I'm willing to say that. But I think that
Trump didn't have the most electoral college votes for Republicans since Reagan either. And you had Google.
Right. Did I say that?
Yes.
I think that he had 306 electoral votes. I think
George H.W. Bush had more.
I understand that, but I think that in the context that we should have really been focusing on that time was that when you had the New York Times and other outlets predicting that Trump was going to lose an election by 93%, there was very few people who thought he could get 270. And I think
But I understand there's no context for facts. Facts are facts, right? And this was not a fact. This was wrong.
And if I said that, then I get it. I mean, I would love to see the site where I said that it's the largest electoral vote. I know that. I know what the president has said on that. I know that as someone who's been involved in Republican politics a lot, to your point, I know what George W. Bush got. I know what Ronald Reagan got. So that there's no question about the totality of that. I think that the context in which there was a huge swing in terms of what people expected him to get and what he ultimately got, there were very few people that thought he was going to get to 270. And the idea that he not only got to beyond 270, but to 306 and carried states like Iowa and Pennsylvania and Michigan and Wisconsin, states that no one thought he had a chance in, I think was a huge swing.
Was there ever something that he wanted you to say or someone in the White House wanted you to say and you said, I'm not going to say that? It's not true.
Of course, look, I've been in this business for 25 years, and I think there are times when a principal says, hey, what we need to do is really say that. And my job, and as any press secretary's job or communications official's job, is to go in and say, look, I get that, but no one's going to believe us. We lose credibility if we say that.
Did you win any of those arguments?
Absolutely. And again, I'm not presupposing that, but there were times when, you know, and it's not but throughout my career where people have said, look, we really need to just say the following, or we should overlook the following. And I think part of it is that sometimes you've got to get bad news out, and you want to maintain your credibility. And I think that's something that every press secretary wants to do.
Do you think you maintained your credibility?
There were times where I screwed up. There's no question about it. I've
Give
said
me
this
one.
before. I mean, the inauguration, you brought it up. I would say that's first and foremost. There was an event where I was trying to talk about how evil Assad was.
Right.
And I screwed that up royally.
You brought up Hitler, right?
Thank you for reminding me. But those are days when I went back and, look, I'm a very self-critical person.
Yeah.
And I sat back and said, you know, it's not my credibility. I honestly went out every day to do the best job I could for the President of the United States, who gave me an unbelievable honor, and to basically do the best job I could for the American people, because that's ultimately who you serve. And so when I screwed up, yeah, it felt really bad, because you're realizing that you're tarnishing your personal reputation, your family's reputation, your friends who like you and support you, you know, some of your colleagues, and ultimately, again, this administration and the American people who I wanted to do my best job, my best for every single day.
Well, and look, every press guy's dream job is to be press secretary in the White House.
Right.
And Sean, I know you, and people on the Hill who've known you for a long time really like you, really like your family, and you're good at your job, you're a good person.
I think that's mostly my wife.
No, you know, I know it. I know it's true, but that's not what a lot of strangers, what a lot of Americans saw at this incident. Was this your dream way of becoming press secretary in the White House? Is this how you wanted it to go?
I went into that job thinking about the job as a traditional press secretary, right?
Yeah.
And it's an untraditional president.
Right.
It's an unconventional. He's a disruptor. He is a street fighter. He won because he presented a different way of doing business and coming to shaking up Washington. And I think from the get-go, one of the lessons that I learned is that we needed to look at who the president was and the message that he was sending and say, we need to adapt to the style that he's coming in. Yeah. And
was that difficult for you?
Absolutely, because I've been steeped in Republican politics my life. I'm a party guy. I grew up, you know, street by street doing local campaigns, congressional campaigns, all the way up. Yes, it was a dream job, and it was awesome to have a front row seat to watch this historic election happen. Yeah. So there's plenty of things that I wish I could do over. But I think that that's hopefully what everybody who's a good professional does, is they look and say, did I do the best job I could today, both personally and professionally, and can I do a better job the next day, or can I fix what I did? I did a lot of that, and there were times when I screwed up an answer, I didn't know something, or maybe I came out too forceful on something, or I didn't check with the president, and I thought, hey, I know what he wants. And that's something that I learned, because over time, I had been one of those press secretaries that thought, hey, you learn the voice of your principal. You go out. Donald Trump's not an ordinary principal, right? He's the kind of person that he wants to make sure that you articulate his voice exactly how he wants it. Yeah. And I took for granted a lot of, based on my previous history, here's what I think he'll probably want me to say. And I learned over time, that's not how you do the job under him.
What has life been like afterwards? I remember you told me a story. You went out to LA for the Emmys for your cameo, and all these celebrities were really excited to see you. They took selfies, and then afterwards they went out and like apologized for it because they got some heat. I mean, that must be weird.
Look, I've really enjoyed the time after since I left. It's been a lot more relaxing. I get a lot more sleep. I'm honored to have done the job that I did, and I want to continue to support the agenda that the Republicans are pushing. But it's been good to be after it, and it is weird. But I will say, it's been very positive afterwards. I think there's a lot of people who will come up to me and say, you know, I don't support your party, I don't support your president, but I appreciate your public service. Honestly, I think that's what we need to get back to a lot more, is saying, hey, elections are about choosing a leader going forward at whatever level. And then once we have that election, then we support the person until the next election. Then you go out and you fight it again on the streets. You go door to door, trying to get more people to vote for your candidate versus the other candidate. So it's been very heartening to me, not just as someone who served the administration, but as a country, to see people say, you know, I didn't agree with you. I didn't think everything you did was right. I don't like your party. I don't think your policies are good, but I appreciate your service.
At the very least, sure. Now, take me back to 2015. This is all starting. I was right there with you, watching it, you know, on the ground, rooting for my guy or my guys. Were you surprised inside the RNC at the rise of Donald Trump? I mean, I talked to people inside the RNC. They were definitely surprised.
I think we were surprised in the sense that there is this traditional mold about how you run a campaign, especially a presidential campaign. You get the best consultants. You raise a ton of money. You create this national ground game. You deploy your people in the early states. Trump blew that mold up.
Yeah.
And nobody could conceive of, in this modern day and age, not having a data-driven ground
Was
staff.
the RNC ready for him?
Well, the RNC is truly a neutral arbiter. Our job is to put the logistics and the process together and to make sure that the mechanics are taken care of.
Sure.
Do you have the field staff? Do you have the data? Are you raising the money to get all that done? And then let the voters decide who the candidate is and attach yourselves to them. We did it. I was there when we did it with Romney. I've been part of the, on the sidelines to see it with the last several candidates before that. So we were ready for him. And in a way, because of Chairman Reince Priebus's investment in data and field, we were more than ready. We had gone through Romney and realized what it was like not to have an RNC that was ready, fully ready. I think Reince and the team worked their tail off in 2012 to get us up to speed. But we learned after 2012, mechanics matter, field staff matters, data matters.
And in particular with Trump, because he wasn't ready for all that kind of stuff.
He wasn't
He didn't have any of that.
He didn't have that infrastructure. He didn't have that the political infrastructure to raise money, to do opposition research, do all of those things that a normal campaign would do. So frankly, because the RNC was able to provide those resources, he was a messenger, he was the leader, and we were able to sort of go down, attach from the bottom, and provide the resources necessary to help assist with. If
Trump hadn't been the nominee, if he hadn't won, who's the guy of the 17 Republicans you would have most wanted to be press secretary for?
I don't mean it. Honestly, after being at the RNC for 6 years, your job is sort of like working at the NFL and trying to pick out what...
Yeah, but you're not there anymore.
I know
you're not there anymore.
I mean, I liked a lot of them. I'm very fond of several of them.
Give me one name.
I love Mike Huckabee. I think he's a great guy. I was a fan of Marco Rubio from a perception standpoint. I have a lot of admiration for the Bush family. So, but there were a lot of them that I like personally. I think Rick Santorum had a really populist message. I mean, and I'm trying to think of the other 17 that were on the stage. but each one of them in a different way, I thought, hey, these are really interesting people. And my #1 goal was to win.
Sean, let me start with this, because we had someone from Trump Corporation on last night to talk about the book because he was quoted heavily. And he said some was true, some wasn't. What do you make of the accuracy of this book? So
far, the book's not out yet. We've seen excerpts
based
come out.
on,
And the excerpts come out show that there are some narratives that sound that they could be interesting. But by and large,
what do you mean by interesting?
That it's like there are certain things that I've read that say that this event happened and that's plausible.
Okay.
But there's a lot of the quotes that I know are attributed to myself and other people that frankly never happened. And if you read the author's note that he put in the book that I've obtained a copy of, he makes it clear that, Michael Wolff, who has a history of fabricating stuff, who is a very questionable past, and a lot of reporters are now kind of digging into this and saying, we've got to question his sourcing here. He admits that he never brought any note. He took notes. He didn't bring a recorder to the thing. There is no question that the accuracy of this book is definitely in question. And I know from some of the things that were written that don't pertain to me definitely didn't happen with respect to the president, the first lady.
Yeah, the White House today called it a complete fantasy.
But I was around them, not in every instance by any means.
Right.
But the idea that, Melania Trump was the one who encouraged President Trump to run for office. She was very supportive of this. The idea that she was crying is nonsense. She's been very supportive of her president, of the president, of his agenda, and of him personally. And so I think that you start to.
So who let this guy in then?
The biggest problem that I have, though, is
why was he given access?
Hold on, but at what point, the question is, if 10% isn't true, if 20% isn't true, if 30%, what is the reader supposed to guess? What is accurate and what isn't? But I know from what I've seen so far that there is a lot of this, if not, and we've only seen the excerpts, that is definitely a problem.
But why did he get so much access then?
Well,
if it was widely known that he's kind of a discredited...
Because we don't know how much access he got. What we do know...
He said he talked to 200 people in the White House.
I can talk to 200 people in the middle of Columbus Circle. That doesn't mean that I had a ton of access. I meant he wrote he talked to 200 people.
Well, so he got Steve Bannon on the record?
Sure. So we know he talked to Steve Bannon. I talked to him. He came in and said, I would like to write a book about the president, as did several people during my tenure. And they made an appointment and they came in. That's how it works. And so to the extent that, and from what I understand, Steve had set him up with appointments to come in and visit him over time. That's what happens. He came in as any guest that has an appointment.
Well, and Bannon hasn't denied any of.
Right, and I was going to say, I mean, the other issue right now is, you know, you played that clip from Steve,
yeah.
And while he may continue to say he's a supporter of the president and his agenda, what we didn't hear is a denial, and that right. is what, as a PR person, troubles me. I mean, the first thing that you do when you're attacked with a falsehood is not only deny it, but go out and really make the case for it. I haven't heard any of that. That's
no,
what
and do you think the stuff that he said, both according to Michael Wolff and in previous articles where he's maybe perhaps leaked stuff himself, do you think that he's been loyal to the president? Well, or like the statement from the White House said, is Steve Bannon all about himself?
Well, I think if you're all about the president, if you're all about his agenda, then you don't you don't attack the First Lady. You don't attack the president's family. That should be off limits. Yeah. Regardless of this NDA that Steve signed, I think just in terms of true professionalism and loyalty and decency, you don't go after the president's family. You don't make up things about people. And again, and a lot of it, admittedly, is speculative. The stuff about Don Jr., he wasn't present for. And he goes out there and attacks Don Jr. and says, well, if I were there and knowing what I know, well, you don't know. You weren't there. And to make those kind of allegations, which are very serious about something about the president's son, is out of bounds.
Do you believe that Steve Bannon has a motive to run for president or anything like that?
Look, here's what I do know. If Donald Trump runs for re-election, he'll be the nominee of the Republican Party, and he will serve a second term. I mean, that's what I know.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the other rift in the party, which is that Donald Trump is losing some Republican support among Republicans writ large. In February, he had an 84% approval rating. November, 76. White evangelicals, in February, he was at 78. November, 61. Among men, crucial to his election, February, 45, down 5 points in November. Do you think there's a plan, either at the RNC or with Trump, to recapture some of those voters? Yeah, does he have to?
Of course he does. I mean, you have close elections the last several cycles. You have to get them back, and I think he will. You're seeing some of the fruits of the Tax and Jobs Cut Act already come in, where people are starting to give him credit as companies give out bonuses, as people see that. The economy is going to be the #1 thing going for the president going in to this, and I think he's doing that. The RNC is going to continue to make sure that they have the data ready to identify key voters and bring them back into the fold. But it's the president's accomplishments that are going to keep him ahead to get him a second term. Yeah. I mean, when you look at this, I know you've been critical of the president. Is there what is it going to take to get someone like you back on the team?
Yeah, I mean, I'll say the short answer is put Twitter down. But it's more than that. It's not just the tweets, which I find really unproductive and kind of alarming sometimes and embarrassing. It's what he does with Twitter, which is such an important platform.
Twitter off the table.
No. It's within Twitter. It's attacking the press.
Okay.
I don't like his hostility to the press. I think undermining institutions like the press, the military, our intelligence services, our foreign services, that's bad. And I don't like that tactic.
Look, I would say with respect to all three of those, but especially the military, the president has tremendous respect, and he's made it very clear. With the press, and I've said this before, he has respect for them, but he's going to make it very clear that
I think it's very much Donald Trump's mission to undermine the trust of many institutions so that he himself